of the lessons we have learned both professionally and personally as a team working on this project. To start off on the professional side, Patrick already made that distinction earlier between outputs and outcomes. And again, just to further explain that point, like Patrick said, outputs are more process-oriented versus outcomes, which are much more meaningful. They're specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely, like Jessica mentioned earlier, but that's really just a factor of an outcome-based metric. The main, most important thing to keep in mind is that it satisfies the mission of that certain department or organization as a whole. It really needs to have some kind of meaning towards it and towards the end goal of that company. Disconnected measures, something we saw throughout our research of different jurisdictions around the country, that although some companies or organizations had well-constructed and well-defined metrics and measures, they might not have been in the right division, in which case would lead somebody down the wrong path and not towards their end goal. And goal alignment, important for everybody within an organization, from the bottom all the way up to the top level management, to understand what their daily actions, how their daily actions contribute to the overall goals of that organization. So that's both a vertical and horizontal alignment of goals for every employee throughout the organization. Lastly, an important distinction we had to make while conducting research on this project was the difference between human resources, the HR function, and human capital management. HR deals with the efficiency of how well daily tasks are completed. A lot of that was covered in the metrics and KPIs we saw today: timeliness of investigations, timeliness of filling vacancies, but it deals with just the efficiency of how well those jobs get done. Contrary to that, human capital management deals with much more specific value addition to that company. So that really deals with the positioning of the right people in the right places so that they add value to the company and aren't just there doing the normal daily tasks and not understanding what they're doing. On a more professional side, on a more personal side, as our team, some of the key takeaways we have are the first two: framing a problem, constant communication with the client. Found out that the most important step when conducting a project of this nature is really understanding the initial problem at hand and all the factors that surround that problem, so you can develop a model to really conduct research and come up with that final solution. And that can be done through constant communication with the client. It's very important to constantly stay involved and on the right path so you don't stray from your end goal. Don't boil the ocean ties right along with that. When doing research, you really have to make sure you keep that end goal in mind so that you can research the relevant information and not waste any time on irrelevant information that will not contribute to your final project. Know your audience, important term, just to make sure that every member of the audience, you don't want to wrongly assume that every member of your audience understands your project and the key terms associated with it. So you really want to make sure you lay down to the basic foundation of what your project is about and the key terms and definitions of them. And lastly, project management as a whole. It's everything from time management, relationships with your team, with the client, communicating with your team and the client, setting deadlines, trusting your team members. When all of those are congruent and aligned with each other, that will ultimately lead to the success of your team. And these are just some lessons learned, but to take a step back and look at the project as a whole again, it's very important for us just to understand, and for everybody to understand the importance of performance management and constructing well-defined measures that can increase the accountability throughout an organization, whether that is a public or private sector company. This is a model that we have developed that should be able to be applied to all organizations with an HR function and these certain divisions. And just to mention as well, the measures within the KPIs that we came up with were what we found to be the most generally accepted, but they can be modified to your firm as needed. And with that, we want to thank you all for coming out. If you have any questions, feel free.